Neighbors mad I parked in their spot and continuously file fake noise complaints, so I had to teach them a lesson. When I first moved into my old apartment complex, the office told me I could park anywhere as long as I had my sticker in my window showing I lived there, but if I ever had a guest that they weren't aware of and their car was there for too long, then they'd get a fine. That part's not too important, being that there was always 4 to 5 spaces across from my apartment that were always empty, so my guest or guests would just park there. Anyways, there was 3 parking spaces that were directly in front of the 4 apartments where my apartment was located, and I mean there were actually like 5 to 6 good ones, but these 3 were directly in front and there was 1 parking space that my neighbors seemed to always park in. One day I got home from work and it was the only available space except for across the other side, so I parked in it. They didn't say anything to me directly, but the walls are thin, and they lived in the apartment next to me, so as they were coming up the stairs I could hear the girl, it was a girl/guy couple, complaining. "We always park there. She knows that. She's been here long enough to know that. She should've parked across and just walked the little distance over here. It's not that far." I heard that through my door, because they are tiny studio apartments, so it wasn't that hard to hear. After that, she started being a bitch about everything. I got a call from the office that said I had a noise complaint against me because I was being loud at 3 AM the night before, and my TV was always too loud. This is ridiculous, because I wasn't even home at the time of the noise complaint. I spent the night at my brother's house because he was having a small family get together. Along with that, I didn't have a TV and I didn't have any way of watching anything because I didn't have Wi-Fi, just my phone and its super slow data. So I don't know if she truly heard something and decided to blame it on me, or if she just made it all up. Either way, I made sure to park in the same spot every day from there on out, and it was pretty easy because they left for work before me and got home after me. And if I ever went anywhere aside from work, it was usually with my boyfriend and he typically picked me up. Also, there were cameras in the parking lot of the apartments, so when the managers called me into the office after a third noise complaint, I informed them that the times didn't match up because half the time I wasn't home. They checked and saw that I couldn't possibly have been making noise in my apartment at 3 AM when I wasn't even there, so they told me not to worry, and if she called again they'd just say okay and let it go. However, I was heated over the fact that they continuously tried to get me in trouble and figured they probably thought it'd lead to my eviction, so anyways, they had a dog that barked at every little noise. Should filed a noise complaint on that thing, tbh. It didn't matter what I was doing, whether it was simply walking around my apartment, opening a closet door, etc. The dog always barked. I figured what better way to get back at them than to make their dog bark all the time, or as much as it could be, since it barked most the time anyways. So they got up pretty early to go to work, and they usually didn't home till late, so I noticed that if I made a small noise that people couldn't hear, the dog sure did. I would usually try my best to be quiet so the dog didn't bark, because they would always yell at it when it did, but since they wanted to be jerks I started making sure I was doing everything just loud enough for the dog to hear, and this meant the dog was barking at like 1-2 to 3 AM, causing them to get frustrated. After a week of me doing this, I found out another neighbor filed a noise complaint about their dog, and the office managers found out their dog was actually on the list of breeds not allowed in the apartments. Brilliant. Our neighbors keyed our car over parking in their space. No spaces assigned by the apartment complex, just their god complex. Could never prove it though. Your story made me smile. Impatient speeding soccer mom can't sit at the light for a few minutes. So first, for some context, on my drive home from school there is this road where the speed limit in 25, but most people got 30 or 35 on it. In my state, after you get your learner's permit you then get your junior license, which is an adult license, but has some extra rules, and getting into trouble with it can cause problems. So I turn onto the road where everyone speeds, and there is a black sub behind me. I start out going about 33. The sub gets really close to me, so there is a 4-way stop on this road, and after I hit that I start to go like 27. The SUV, who I can now tell is driven by an impatient soccer mom type, is really close to me now, and I can see her getting annoyed. Next up on the road it starts to widen and makes turn lanes, but before the turn lanes it's wide enough for her pass me. So I drive in the middle, so she can't pass me. The look of annoyance on her face was great. And then she follows me into the right turn lane. This road also doesn't have a no turn on red sign. The light was red, and I could have turned, which would allow the SUV to turn too. But no, I sat there, she honked at me, and I still sat there waiting for the green light. Moral of the story: don't try to speed and be a dick about it. Cause it was a residential area, and getting to where you're going like a minute earlier isn't worth it. Lock your trike in other employees' way. I will hide it on you. Background info: I work for a major manufacturer as an assembly mechanic. The building I work in is giant. One length of the building is around 1/2 mile long. As such, people who frequently have to travel long distances to do their job are issued tricycles with storage bins on the back. Naturally, employees who are not issued trikes will borrow unsecured trikes and oftentimes forget to return them. As such, most, if not all, trikes are chained up to prevent them from disappearing. Now on to the revenge. One individual had taken to chaining up his trike to one of our chemical cabinets. It made the aisle and the cabinet difficult to use because that trike was always in the way. I tried talking to the trike's owner about it, but he replied with, "That's where I park it and that's that." Okay, fine. I plotted my revenge. I waited until I was authorized to work late. So late that I was probably the only person in the building by the time I clocked out. I managed to lift the chemical cabinet enough to slip the trike's chain under the foot of the cabinet's leg. Now the chain was through the trike's front wheel and wrapped around the forks. No problem, it's just a trike. I picked up the front wheel and walked the trike all the way to the other end of the building. Then I hid it behind a large parts rack. The trike's owner did eventually find it. Now he secures it out of the way of things we need to do our job.